Hello, so we're going to start out with web usability, and this is going to kind of like lead to your first project in a way, because as a graphic designer and dealing with web designs, you have to be able to, well, basically make it usable. If a site and any other application is not usable, then it becomes a waste of time. Clients or potential customers are not going to want to go to an app or a website that is not going to function well or allow or get really confusing. So, in the case of many web designs, the simpler the better in those cases. And again, you don't want to overload it with a lot of imagery as well. So, for this first one, I do want to talk about web usability because it is a major element when it comes to website design. As designers, we have to design it in such a way that we can allow our customers to be able to function on it and be able to use it. So I'm going to talk about web usability, which is going to be basically giving a guide to user experiences. All right, so we're going to start with this. All right, one of the things is top major functions of a website is identifying the site, establishing its brand. Usually it's a logo up in the upper left corner or in the center, somewhere at the very top. We're going to learn the term above the fold later on. But there has to be some kind of identifying element. If you go to a site and don't see any kind of corporate identity or logo, then it means that you kind of question what is it all about. Right? You have to set the tone and the personality of the site. Is it a manufacturer? Is it a horror movie promotion? Is it a kids educational site? You have to set the tone and give it a personality, helping people to get a sense of what the site is about. They should look at it within a certain like 5 seconds and be able to determine that, oh yeah, this is a manufacturer. Oh, this is for a kids game. Oh, this is a e-commerce site. All right, you have to be able to give them a sense of what the site's about within a few seconds. You have to let people start key tasks immediately. You have to be able to guide your clientele around the site. Whether it's pointing to something, whether you start in the navigation, that's very simple terms. Those are things that we have to have it started. And then sending each person on the right way effectively and efficiently. All right. Getting to the information that's important to the viewer is critical when it comes to that. All right. So we're going to start out with the site is not designed for you. You are not your audience. You don't see things like they do. Know what they know, want what they want, or work how they work. All right? You are not designing. It's just like a graphic designer. You are not designing for yourself because you are not the audience. This is where you are designing a site that is pertaining to a certain audience, certain customer base that you are working with. So one of the first things that you probably want to do is create a persona, which is a fake person based on research of a particular audience that you're working with, and develop a scenario of what the fictional character is doing when visiting a site. And for case in point, we have this Ellen who is based on research of what she does, who she is, because this is a particular clientele or customer base that your client is shooting for. It is their audience. So here are some of the things to look out for. All right, one is site load time has to be reasonable. Now, many years ago, this was a big thing because internet connections used to be very, very slow. So when you're dealing with load time, you have to make sites that are not going to take forever to download. Otherwise, people go somewhere else, and that's not what we want to have done with a client's site. You have to have adequate text to background contrast. All right, black letters on a white background is the highest contrast you can get. All right, they have to be able to be read. So you wouldn't want to put light red text on a bright red background. Obviously, there is no contrast there because and it doesn't make it readable because every monitor is different in such a way. So some monitors may be able to see a little bit more contrast between those two. On some monitors, you can't determine that there's actually even text there. So you have to determine what the high contrast of text to the background color is. The font size. Spacing is easy to read. Right? Opinions vary on ideal size for text, but err on the side of slightly too big. Right? When you're dealing with text, you want to make it as big for people to be able to read them. Some people have small monitors, other ones have bigger ones, and they have a certain setting on their monitor to be able to zoom in on text. So you want to allow for a large enough text size where it's not really disappearing and it allows for easy reading. Right? This is an old term, but amazingly it's still around. But there's Flash or add-ons are used sparingly. Flash was a program that you create these just unrealistic websites that you had to deal with using a Flash player. Well, Apple determined that one for everybody when they decided not to use Flash on any of their computers or phones or devices. So they kind of like basically took Flash out of the equation. So you want to determine that you don't want a circus sideshow going on your website. You have to use them sparingly if you do. Images have to have what is called an alt tag, and what this refers to is any kind of website or any image per se that is in there has to have what is called an alternate text. This is not necessarily for anyone you see in the picture, but it is necessary for disability reasons. All right, looking at a particular website, and if there's a screen reader involved, it'll read what that alternate text has on it. We'll read it. This is a picture of a guy on a motorcycle or whatever. You have to have some kind of alternate text for it. Sites have to have a custom not found or 404 page. All right. And this happens a lot. When I look at websites as a living form. And when you have certain pages that you take out and certain pages that you replace them with, things get messed up. All right. And this is particularly pertaining to like SEO or anybody who has a link in a document or whatever. If they go to a page and it's not there anymore, they're going to get what is called 404 page not found type of element. And what that means is that the page is not there, but there is a link to it. So instead of having this white screen that just has 404 on it, you can customize those particular pages to say, things like, oops, sorry, our page is now gone. Here are some alternate options that you can actually go to. So you can direct somebody to it. You can even include it as a navigational element, or the shell of the website can actually just have in the content area 404 page not found, but allow somebody to navigate through it. If you do not have that, then it just defaults to a white screen that says page not found, and they can't go anywhere. They think that your site is gone. So you always want to make a custom one when you can. Right? The company logo is prominently placed, which means that the logo, the identity, is always going to be either at the top center or it's going to be the top left. We rarely see it on the top right because screens are going to be different, and it always starts from the top left corner as far as what is seen. So if you have a smaller screen, anything over to the right could very well get cropped off. So when your logo is in the top center or the top left, then that is a better location for it. So you always want to keep the company logo in a prominent place. The tagline. Any kind of tagline that describes what the company does is also necessary a lot of times up near the logo. All right, basically a simple form of what do you do is the necessary element when it comes to websites. All right, a home page should be looked at within 5 seconds. We're seeing a evolution in websites where the home page becomes the actual full site, where it's called a single page website, where all it is scrolling one page. So that there is an evolution going on. So it's basically the home page, or really in this case, whatever comes up first should be digestible within 5 seconds. If there's too much information there, then they just don't want to read it. They just want to go somewhere else. You also want to give some kind of clear path to what the company information is. What the company is about, what's its history, who's there, and their mission statement, their value statement, all that stuff. You want to leave a clear path to it. And that could be about tag or navigational element. Could be our company or whatever. You also, in the same sense of the company information, you want to also allow for a clear path to the contact information. This is usually either that contact information is on every page in the upper right corner, or the bottom footer, or on an actual page itself. It says contact. It's very simple. So you always want to make sure your contact information is available. Right, main navigation, easily identifiable. Usually it's at the very top. Usually very top, and it always goes across the screen. That has been an evolution since we've started going mobile. We used to have sites that had what were called side navigation, which was buttons along the left side of the website. But those are not being used anymore. We typically have the navigation always going up to top and strung out across the page. That is just how we've been doing that lately. The sidebar has gone away in all reality. Navigation buttons should always be clear and concise. Right? Instead of saying communicate online with our team, you just say contact us, or even contact is necessary. Short, simple words are the best option for main navigation, not these complex words. They always should be clear and concise. The number of buttons and links is reasonable. You do not want links on everything. Okay, navigational elements can lead you to information that people seek. But if there's too many of them, then they just don't want to go through everything to try and find a certain information that they're seeking. The company logo should always be linked to the homepage. That's usually a default, because a lot of people, when they want to go back home, instead of having a home button, they would actually go to the logo and click on that to actually shoot them back to the home page. That's still going on now. Links are consistent, easy to identify, right? Links has been going through some stages of how it's being identified, whether it's a different color that is obviously contrasting the actual color, or the default of having an underline underneath them. Having them blue anymore is usually a default of the browser, but you can change that rather simple. So it's like you don't have to have it always have an underline underneath the link, but you do need to have it identifiable as a link. And well, if you have a pretty large site, you always want to make sure that there is a search bar up at the top, some place where it's going to be easily recognizable, some place where they can go, and if they just see too much information, they just want to do a quick search, allow them to do that. If you have a site that's like 5 pages long, there's no reason to have a search in there. You want to, if search goes up to like 10 plus, then maybe you might want to include a search. All right, major headings are clear and descriptive. All right, when you're dealing with programming, when you're dealing with headings, you always want to have an H1 as the main heading and H2 or H3 or H4 going down the line. H1 is the largest that it can get, but it stands for heading. And when it comes to search engine optimization and Google searching, that is going to be the main heading, and it's going to look at that in H1 as something that is very, very important. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but critical content is above the fold. This refers to the old newspapers. When we used to get newspapers on a subscription, they got delivered to our door. They usually were these long newspaper things that actually got folded in half. And the most important element was put up by the masthead of the newspaper. So the main article, the one that wanted to gain the most attention, was always up by the masthead. So when it folded, you'd want to go to the masthead first, and then whatever article is underneath the masthead became the most important element. So critical content always needs to be above the fold, whether it's the logo, navigation, contact information, and main points. You always want to make it above the fold. And that fold refers to the bottom of your browser window, is where the fold line is. All right, styles and colors should always stay consistent. If you have blues for titles, you always want to keep blues for titles throughout the whole entire site. Fonts should be consistent. Sizes should be consistent. All that stuff should be consistent through a site. All right, emphasis. You want to use them sparingly. Whether you bold or italicize, you want to make sure that they are, not everything is bold, but the most important elements are bolded. All right. Ads and pop-ups are unobtrusive. All right. If you can actually make money if you sign up for Google Ads, you can have ads on your site that actually generate some kind of income. Not much, but you can. So if those ads are on there, make sure they're not obtrusive. They're not all over the place. There are some sites that just go hog wild on these, and they have elements that just are very, you don't know what's what. So make sure that they're unobtrusive and make sure that they are distinguished as ads, not hidden in as something that might be on their site, but basically make them unobtrusive. All right, main copy is concise and explanatory, which means that the main copy should be short. They're not going to be novels unless you guide somebody to something that maybe they want to read more of. All right, so they should be concise, they should be short, they should get to the point, not have a full drawn out description of what's going on. URLs are meaningful and user friendly. All right, what that means is that when you were dealing with like generating site page files, those file names should always be or basically what the page is all about, or user friendly. They need to be created in such a way where you know what they are just by a few words. All right. You can also generate page titles. Page titles should also, those are the titles that show up at the top of a browser window. Those titles should be explanatory of what the page is all about. All right. Not consistent throughout what the whole site is all about, but those pages need to be included within that title. Okay. All right. So that's that for web usability. And I'll talk about more about that, about what is called above the fold here in the next video. So have a good day.